Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chicago Med just proved why Hannah cannot be with Dean after her relationship with Mitch. Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 17 largely focuses on Dean Archer, but it also proves that Hannah should not be with him after her relationship with Mitch. It's hard to say what specifically about the Chicago Med cast makes this show so difficult to find pairings to root for, but Hannah has definitely become the focus when it comes up in conversation. This has been especially true in Chicago Med Season 10, given her recent issues with Mitch as well as Dean Archer's apparent interest in Hannah while he was out of his mind on acid. The most recent episode, The Book of Archer, brings this issue to light even more. Archer's encounters with some characters are very limited, so storylines such as Frost being groomed as a child receive little attention. However, Archer has consequential interactions with Hannah at multiple points throughout the episode, and if Chicago Med wishes to cement its place as one of the best Chicago shows, it's vital these interactions be meaningful. They technically are, but the extent to which they're healthy for either character may be more questionable. One of the biggest pairings in Chicago Med is the potential romance between Hannah Asher and Dean Archer, and that gets a significant boost in Season 10, Episode 17. But it started long before that. Fans largely started shipping the two characters because Hannah and Dean have a prominent friendship in which they often bring out the best in one another. Even when he was in the middle of a day-long LSD high, Archer has always seen Hannah as possessing an inner light that she unfortunately doesn't always see in herself. Based on this, it's easy to see why people would ship the two. Hannah struggled with addiction and lost a parent. Because of this, she can have patterns of self-loathing at times. Pairing her with a character who sees her best features when she's unable makes incredible sense, especially after her tumultuous relationship with Mitch, in which Hannah had to deal with a fellow substance abuser who frequently disrespected her. So it's sweet when she shows up at Dean's house at the end of The Book of Archer to make him dinner. Unfortunately, Asher and Archer romance on Chicago Med is arguably toxic, but this episode provides it in spades. He calls a patient stupid for wanting to save her baby. When Hannah takes issue with that, Archer uses her dead mother against her to force the argument. They eventually make up, but that also ends in an argument over Archer's grandiose self-pity. It feels too much like Hannah's relationship with Mitch, and the resolution somehow makes it feel even worse. Archer's excuse is that his ex-wife died. That's obviously terrible, but Hannah's already found the strength to hold Mitch accountable when he lashed out at her after losing a childhood friend. Experiencing trauma doesn't justify punishing the people we claim to love, and the writers of Chicago Med owe it to Hannah's character at this point to have her learn that lesson for good. Her showing up to Archer's house to make him dinner after he berates her doesn't give her that respect. It's no secret that Chicago Med needs a good romance. However, Asher's two most popular options at this point are both men who always seem to be one tragedy away from lashing out. Mitch has experienced some recent growth, but the sustainability of that growth is entirely at the whims of the show's writers. The same goes for Archer. Maybe it's better if she takes some time off and meets a new and more appropriate romantic partner. If Chicago Med really wants to find Hannah a new partner, and both Mitch and Archer are bad for her, the show has some options. She's had great rapport with Frost when they've interacted. While this might not be a popular fan desire, she could also wind up meeting Kip Lennox. They've both lost parents, they've both been close to emotionally closed-off people, and their relationship on Chicago Med wouldn't be marred by professional disagreements. It might not be a popular choice, but it can't be the worst option Hannah has at her disposal right now. Hannah Asher had been through her fair share of turmoil on Chicago Med, but just when it seemed like she was on the path to healing, her relationship with Mitch proved why she could never be with Dean Archer. While there was once an unspoken tension and potential between Hannah and Dean, her recent experiences made it abundantly clear that their dynamic was not meant to be. When Hannah first got involved with Mitch, it felt different from her previous entanglements. He wasn't just another rebound or distraction. He was someone who seemed to understand her. Their relationship started in a whirlwind, as many hospital romances do, but there was something deeper beneath the surface. Mitch wasn't perfect, but he challenged Hannah in ways she hadn't experienced before. He respected her boundaries, encouraged her growth, and reminded her of the independence she had fought so hard to regain after her struggles with addiction. For a while, it seemed like Hannah and Mitch could be something truly special. However, their relationship eventually crumbled under the weight of the pressures surrounding them. The demanding nature of their jobs, personal baggage, and emotional barriers led to a painful but necessary breakup. And while Hannah was devastated, she walked away with a newfound sense of clarity about what she needed, and what she could no longer tolerate in a partner. Enter Dean Archer. The gruff, complicated doctor had always harbored a complicated mix of protectiveness and wariness toward Hannah. Their interactions were charged, and on the surface, there were hints of something more beneath the professional veneer. Dean had seen her at her worst and still respected her as a physician, but respect alone wasn't enough to build a healthy relationship. And after what she had gone through with Mitch, Hannah saw the glaring truth. She and Dean could never work. Mitch had helped Hannah see the importance of a balanced relationship. With him, she realized she needed a partner who could meet her halfway, who wouldn't try to control or push her into something she wasn't ready for. Dean, however, carried an inherent need to fix things, a quality that bordered on suffocating when directed at someone like Hannah. She had already spent so much of her life trying to prove her independence and fighting to be seen as capable. The last thing she needed was a relationship where she constantly had to reassure her partner that she didn't need saving. Moreover, Dean's own baggage made things even more complicated. He was battling his own demons, struggling with his health issues, and had a tendency to push people away before they got too close. Hannah had been through enough heartbreak to know that love couldn't survive if one person was always retreating. With Mitch, she had learned that relationships required vulnerability and mutual effort, something Dean wasn't ready to give. But the most crucial reason Hannah knew she couldn't be with Dean after Mitch, she finally recognized her worth. The Hannah Asher who once might have entertained the idea of being with Dean was not the same woman standing in the hospital halls now. She had fought too hard to become this version of herself, and she wasn't going to jeopardize that by falling into a relationship that would inevitably break her. Hannah and Dean shared a complicated connection, but that was all it would ever be, complicated. And for once, Hannah was okay with walking away, because in the end she'd have finally learned that the right love wouldn't require her to lose herself in the process.